All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday. Hope you had a nice weekend. I hope you were able to relax a little bit and enjoy yourself. Nicholas, good weekend? Yeah? Did you have fun? You what?
I guess.
You guess? Did you just chill out and relax? And yeah, that's good. That's what weekends are for. Amanpreet, you had a good weekend? Yeah. I had a life-changing weekend.
Life-changing weekend.
Life-changing weekend.
Wow.
It was huge.
In a good way?
Huh?
In a good way?
Yeah, definitely in a good way.
That's good.
But let's see who's here. Ryan is here, so good morning. Good morning to you, sir. I guess good evening to you. It's pretty late, I know. Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Nicole. Hello. Abby's here. Good morning, Abby. And Simrat is here. Good morning. And Shania is here. Good morning, Shania. Okay, so, where did we leave off on Friday? Oh, yes. We were talking about things that are standing in the way of women being equal to men. And so we said that we were kind of transitioning out of all of that music video and movies and advertising. And we were saying that, we've been talking about equality in society for quite some time. Why don't we have it? And one of the concepts I introduced to you here is the idea of patriarchy, right? The idea that men are, there's a cultural belief that men are somehow superior to women and that men should be in charge of things. Men should be the head of things. And so we see that reflected in a number of different ways, right? If we look at government, we'll find most of the people that have powerful positions in government are in fact men, right? People who are in charge of large companies are men. People who are in charge of religion, for the most part, are men. People who are in charge of the school system are quite often men, right? So again, we said one of the aspects of oppression was that the dominant group was able to sort of establish themselves as the normal thing, the normal version, and they're also the ones who are able to create society in a way that benefits them. And men have undoubtedly done this. Men have kind of set the standards in terms of what's normal, and they've set the standards of what's normal in regards to what they are or what they think they should be. And they've created a society that kind of benefits them because they are in charge of it. Although, I am happy to say that at the institution that you study at currently, mostly women are in charge. So our principal is a woman, our vice principal operations is a woman, our HR manager is a woman, our head of secondary is a woman, our director of recruitment is a woman, our financial controller is a woman. So almost all of the most powerful positions at this college are in fact held by women. There's just a few men. The chair of our board of governors is a woman. So this is a mostly female-run institution, to be honest. So I'm happy to report that. But not all institutions and not all social institutions are quite so lucky or quite so representative of women. So we said that Western society, and probably I think we could argue that almost all societies around the world show some degree of inequality between men and women, and it's the men who have more power than the women do. And again, some societies that inequality is less, some societies that inequality is greater, but either way, we have inequality within societies. And so the question, of course, is what is causing that? What's standing in the way? And so I started watching this kind of very short BBC documentary on Friday. We met 4 young women. We met first we met Vigdis, who's from Iceland. Then we met think it was Mira, who's from Jordan. I'm not sure the order that we met these girls in, but Mira is from Jordan, Shui Shui is from Lesotho, and Lulu is from the UK, right? So we met these 4 young women. They're probably about 16 years old, I think, give or take. 15? 15, 16. And so they're talking about their experiences in society, right? And that's an important age for them because they're transitioning from being girls to being women, right? They're sort of stepping out and becoming more aware of not only who they are in their families, but who they are in society as a whole, right? So that's an important age for them. And what kind of things are they thinking and feeling about their place in society and how things are? Do you remember?
I'm not going out.
Right. So the Icelandic girls were saying that, at home, at least in Iceland, they go out late all the time and they walk home and they seem to feel safe. But there's some places in the world where that's not the case, right? Even New York City, one of the girls said that they were with their family vacationing in New York City, and it wasn't safe for this young girl to go and go for a walk late at night, right? It wasn't safe. And that's probably something that, we've talked about that in this class before, but probably something that men don't think about very much, right? Is physical safety. Like, there's certainly, there's places in this city where I would not go after dark, or even when it isn't dark, there's places I wouldn't go. But for the most part, I don't really think about my personal safety when I walk around the city. I'm not really worried that I am going to be assaulted in any way, right? But again, that's not the same feeling for women, right? Women are more commonly on guard, right? Or more commonly cognizant of their physical safety, right? What else do these girls talk about?
Muslim girls are not allowed to play rough games.
Right. So there was a lot of talk about Mira's kind of life experience, right? And the idea that there seemed to be certain activities that she couldn't partake in, right? More sort of physical, rough activities like playing basketball and things like that. There were certainly, it seemed like the gender roles were a little more firm, right? There's stuff that boys can and should do, and there's stuff that girls can and should do, right? And there seemed to be kind of less overlap between those gender roles in Mira's experience anyway. What else did we hear?
Raising the kid is done by the woman.
Right, so Shui Shui's mom, whose name was Masakanyana, I think. I love that name. Her mom was kind of saying that, there's something there's something that women have that men don't have in terms of raising children. And it's not necessarily a biological organ or anything, but it's just something that women are designed for, she says, is to raise children and to take care of them. And again, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but her mom did kind of express that idea. What else?
Young girls will during the wedding is so long.
Sorry, say that again?
The young girls, they feel like during the wedding time they're so long.
Oh, right. There was the custom, that marriage exchange custom, and I can't remember the name of the exchange, but the groom's family was compensated usually, right, with cows or with money, right? Traditionally, probably cows. And so I keep messing it up. It's the bride's family that receives. It's the groom's family that gives. Sorry, I keep messing that up. I keep messing it up. So there's this marriage exchange, and some of these girls are kind of contextualizing that exchange and thinking, yeah, like I'm being sold, right? I'm being sold for a herd of cows, and they obviously don't feel very good about that, right? What else are we hearing?
The girls are not allowed to smoke.
15-year-old Mira is not allowed to smoke. I have news for you, Mira. That's not sexism. That's that's good parenting. You're not allowed to smoke at 15, whether you're a girl or a guy. Good morning, Mulder. At least not in my house. But it's true. It's true. She kind of expresses her desire to be free through smoking, I guess. What else?
Mira is not allowed to choose her friends.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of choice of friends, her parents seem to have some control over who she hangs out with and who she doesn't, right? Which again, to some degree, is probably understandable, right? Parents are always worried about, the other kids that their kids hang out with, and are those kids good influences or bad ones? But you kind of get the impression that if her father says, no, you're not hanging out with that girl, that's not going to happen, right? You feel there's a little more power. We talked about that as well, right? We said that the independence of children varies according to culture, right? And so, in Western culture, we're very independent, and kids kind of grow up and start making their own decisions, and they become independent of parents. In other cultures, parents have kind of a large role in their kids' lives, even into their adult lives, and have things to say about how those kids live their lives. And so that's different for different families, and it's also different for cultures as well, right? Some parents are going to be heavily involved in their children's life, even into adulthood. Some cultures are going to, encourage more independence, I guess, for better or worse. What else? What else do we see or hear from these young girls? What were we hearing from Lulu, the young woman from the UK? What were we hearing from her? I know it's tough with her because she's got a pretty solid British accent, and she talks quickly, and so sometimes it's hard to pick up exactly what she's saying, but say again? Oh yeah, there's lots of her experience has to do with a lot of slut shaming, right? And so boys her age seem to be talking about sex quite a bit. They seem to be directing a lot of I guess female slurs, I don't know how to say it, or gender slurs in the direction of these girls, right? Which she and her friends don't really enjoy or appreciate. I just had a minute. I thought it was funny that Lulu comes from a country where English is the first language, but out of these 4 girls, she's the hardest one to understand, which seems a little ironic, right? Seems a little ironic, but yeah. So lots of kind of slut shaming, lots of sex talk, lots of kind of uncomfortable statements being made and offensive statements being made toward Lulu and her friends. What else? Does that kind of cover it? I think so. Shui was talking a lot about kind of the marriage custom and the cows, and then her schoolmates were talking about the idea of would they marry a woman with a higher powered career than them. That was kind of their conversation. Lulu's conversation had a lot to do with slut shaming and kind of objectification of women. Vigdis's conversation had to do a lot with, and we'll see that a little bit more today, a little bit more to do with the world of work and sort of how the equality in Iceland, such as it is, still influences their work. So we'll hear more about that as well. And then Mira had to do a little bit with friends and boyfriends, but also activities that you can and can't do. So there's a few kind of different conversations going on. is there anything else we should talk about before we jump back into this documentary? Questions, comments, concerns? Everyone's good? Okay. Online people, I think I'm going to start the video around 23 minutes. 23 minutes in. I think we watched 25 on Friday, but I'm just backing up 2 minutes just to sort of get us back into it. So start watching about 23 minutes. We'll watch until the end. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about some of these things, and then maybe get to women's suffrage after that. But video first, watch it to the end, then we'll take a 10-minute break, then we'll talk about what we've seen, okay? So we'll see you in just a little bit. The link is in Microsoft Teams as it was last week. Okay, so that should be the end for that documentary. For online people, I think I lied. Let's talk now and then have a break later because we're finished a little bit earlier than I thought. So, what other kinds of things are we talking about in this part of the documentary? What did we hear?
Well, she might dress up and look and stuff.
Yeah, so our narrator here was talking to a couple of teenage boys hanging out in an alleyway, and they made some interesting comments, right? They were talking about, the narrator was challenging them and saying that, I've been talking to some girls and they feel that there's a lot of inappropriate sexual comments being made in their direction. And what do you two young men say to that? And so, yeah, they made the statement that, well, if, girls didn't want these compliments, then why dress up, right? Why wear makeup? Why make yourself look so nice and then get angry when guys compliment you? Anyone have anything to say about that? Because there are things you can say about that. Hey Scotty, what you watching? There you go. What's that? No, this isn't break. This is regular class. Yeah. So, yeah, what's your reaction to that? It's okay. It's okay if it comes out jumbled. That's fine. I'm asking for an argument? Kind of, right? So let's pull that apart a little bit more. What are some of the kind of underlying beliefs or messages in that idea that, oh, well, if, girls obviously want compliments because they dress up really nice, so why are they getting mad when we...
What makes them think they're doing it for them?
Because what?
What makes them think they're doing it for them?
Oh, okay. So the question is, of course, what makes these two guys think that girls are dressing nice for them? Why else would you dress nice, Nasser? My male brain can't even imagine another reason that you might want to dress up. Can you help me? Can you explain why?
Dress up for your own comfort zone.
Really?
Like, you want to dress up. You cannot go like a mad person outside.
Yeah, right. So of course, society, we have social norms. Society expects us to dress somewhat put together, right? We don't have to be dressed to the nines all the time, but we do have to look presentable to people. There's certainly that. Plus, it also feels good when you're dressed nicely, right? If you want to feel confident and strong, then your clothes can sometimes help you do that, right? They can help you feel a certain way. Why else might women dress up nice?
I think someone compliments are nice, but like most of the time, nice compliments, they don't have good intentions behind it.
Oh.
They're looking to get something out of it.
Oh, interesting. So not only that, so there's this underlying kind of implicit idea that, well, why would women be dressing up otherwise, if not for us guys? There's a bit of male privilege right there, right? But secondly, what is the intent behind that compliment, right? And so lots of those compliments, if we can you kind of give me an example, Sophie, of like a compliment or two that might like one that might be, there might be good intent behind it, and then one that it's like, I don't know about that one. Can you think of something? What's that?
Another those nice pants. Like, that might be like.
Okay. Ooh, that's a tricky one, right? So nice pants.
I mean, it depends on how you say it.
It,
You know?
yeah. The words matter, but also the delivery matters, right? The tone of your voice, maybe your facial expression while you're delivering this compliment, right? Nice pants can mean nice pants, but it can also mean something else, right? So that's a tricky one. But yeah, I think you're right, right? The intent behind it, is it, meant to say something? Yeah, is it meant to lift you up, or is it meant to put you down? Right? Is it meant to make you feel powerful, or is it meant to make you feel less powerful? Right? And those compliments can go either way, right? I don't know if I told you this story. If I did, stop me, okay? Because I don't want to tell it twice. I used to work in Russia, and I'd go there every summer. That's where I did my grad work. And one year I was there. I don't know, maybe the second or third year I was there, and I got in this little like minivan bus. I got in. I sat there. Have I told this story before? Okay, good. So I sat there, and this girl gets in, and she sits across from me. You sure I haven't told it before? What's that? Oh yeah, and she checked me out. Okay, so I did tell it before, but I guess I'm committed now, so here we go. Yeah, so she gave me the full scan, right? The full checkout. And again, part of me was like, yeah, right, I'm hot, right? But the other part of me became very self-conscious about my appearance, right? I was uncomfortable because suddenly I worried about every little thing, right? Oh, is my hair okay? I actually had hair at the time, believe it or not. Is my hair okay? Am I dressed all right? Am I presentable? And yeah, suddenly I became very self-conscious. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, what if people were checking me out all day long? Right? Because again, women in most societies don't do that quite so obviously. Girls do check out guys, I know it happens, but they're much more subtle about it, right? And so how would I feel if people were looking at me all the time, right? If people were checking me out all the time, how would I respond to that, right? How self-conscious would I be feeling like, all these eyes were on me all the time, right? Because part of my male privilege is I walk down the street and nobody really looks at me. Although, I'm not exactly, I'm not Brad Pitt kind of thing, but, I walk down the street and really nobody looks at me, right? I'm anonymous, right? I just disappear into the crowd. But if you're a woman, and particularly if you're an attractive woman, there's a lot more eyes on you all the time, right? And how does that feel, right? How do women kind of respond to that, right? Do you want to add a little bit here? Because my story is over, but I'm kind of out of my experience not being a woman. What about the porn? What about the porn thing? What do you think that? Yeah, what do you think that? What did you think about what those guys were saying about porn?
I think he said that it happens.
It just happens. It just happens, right? You just watch it. Like it just happens, right? Does that sound likely to be true? It doesn't just happen. It's not that hard to find if you can use Google, but that said, it doesn't just happen, right? What do you think? What do you think porn has to do with sexism? Anything? Nothing?
Let's just say that, I don't know, this is just my experience, because I think in Saturday, I was in the car and my friends watched, that
They're watching porn in the car?
share the screen and I only get a glimpse of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just like, it's not a normal sexual abuse. It's more that all, in my opinion.
It's true, yeah. Like porn is interesting because it's a world of extremes, right? Where everything is, everything is kind of turned up to 11, right? And again, is that damaging? Is it problematic? Does it depend who watches it and why? Does it depend how much they watch it? Sorry, say again? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess a serial killer could say that they were killing women based on porn magazines, but based yes, it is, yeah. But based on the number of people that watch porn, if that were true, all women would be dead. So it's probably he probably has other issues. Pornography is not his issue. I think he's got other things going on.
Well, it depends on who watches it.
It does. It depends on who watches it. It depends on why they watch it. It depends on how critical they're being of it, right? Do they understand what they're seeing, right? I don't have the statistic on me, but most kids who are 10 years old have seen pornography before, right? Is that a good thing?
No,
No, why not?
because it's made for adults for a reason.
And what is that reason? It's made for adults for a reason, but what's the reason?
I'm 17, and I got really uncomfortable watching even a part of the video.
Well, and that's the thing. You are old enough to understand, what's going on, right? But again, 10-year-olds don't get it yet, right? They haven't really hit puberty. They're not thinking sexual thoughts. They're children, right? They do not understand what is going on quite yet, right? And they're not ready for that. And so, yeah, it's that I think is definitely a problem. But again, if you look at porn as kind of a genre of entertainment, it's really full of a lot of extremeness and a lot of stereotypes, right? Racist and sexual stereotypes. And again, is it a good idea for people to be consuming a lot of this, particularly 17-year-olds, right? Brains are still developing, still learning about male-female relationships, right? I think we probably know what they're doing while they're watching it, which is, that has effects on wiring your brain as well. So, without going too deeply into this, I don't know how beneficial the watching of porn is, but these guys seem to think it's entirely harmless, right? It's like, yeah, it just happens, right? It just happens. And then, you go to school and talk to girls in your grade about porns that you've seen and all the sex you're having, and what else did they talk about?
You see, you can do it, you don't have to talk about it.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too, because pornography is very heavily viewed, right? If you look at stats for website traffic, you'll see like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, and then you'll see a bunch of porn sites, right? So even though people are not talking about it in society, people are watching it. Somebody's watching it because those website hits don't happen out of nowhere, right? People are logging into those sites. So a lot of people are watching this. Not a lot of people are talking about it. And again, is that useful as well? Because we talked about movies and music video, right? And those things are kind of out in the open, and we can listen to Ariana Grande's song, we can watch her music video, and then we can have kind of an open discussion about what we think about it, right? About the lyrics and about the video content, what we think it all means or what it doesn't mean. We can very easily have that conversation, but are people really having those conversations about porn? Are they coming in and saying, hey, I watched this porn last night and here's what happened, what do you think? No, people aren't having those conversations, right? And so whatever kind of social messaging is coming through pornography, whether it's sexist or racist or just weird, it's kind of happening in the dark, right? Not the literal dark, but it's happening in a way that people aren't discussing it, right? So we can critique Ariana Grande's song, or we can critique pop music, or we can critique Harrison Ford's films, and everybody is okay talking about those things.
Because you can publicly do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do things that you see on a porn site out in the open.
No, you
But
can't.
it's private.
You can't do the yes, you can't do those things, but they're also not talked about as well, right? At least not very openly. And so the point I'm bringing up here is that when we can talk about things openly, then we can kind of figure them out, right? We can say, what's problematic, what's not. We can understand them. But I don't think people are having those conversations about porn, and certainly not kids their age, right? Kids their age are talking amongst themselves, but are they critiquing what they see, or are they idealizing it?
I think this is one we need to be given the thought before watching it. I don't think watching porn is necessarily the problem. The problem is that we are uneducated.
Sure, that brings us to and that the talk that brings us to Shui Shui and her mom having the talk. Has anyone had that talk with their parents? Put up your hand if your parents have had the sex talk with you. I'm not putting up my hand because my parents didn't, but
I gave the sex talk to my younger brother, though.
did they give? Yeah,
I gave.
you
I
did.
Gave, yeah.
You did. Okay, but they didn't give that one to you. They didn't give you that talk. No, nobody.
There wasn't like a specific talk. They were just always open about that topic.
Oh, okay. So it came up
Yeah.
repeatedly when it made sense. Okay. Right, and that's probably, unfortunately, that's a lot of what the sex talk winds up being. Is it winds up being, a talk about STDs and STIs, right, sexually transmitted diseases and infections, or it winds up being a biology lesson, right? Here's how humans get pregnant, right? There's a sperm and an egg, and and that's kind of what it winds up being but that really doesn't equip young people to navigate physical relationships, right? The biology doesn't really help you that much, right? And nor does, information about STIs is definitely, you should know it, you should protect yourself, of course, but what I'm saying is there's a lot missing, right? There's a lot of things missing from those talks, right? In terms of how to actually have a relationship with someone, how to respect the other person, right? And I imagine that those guys in the alleyway didn't really get that talk from their parents, and so again, they're absorbing a bunch of messages from pornography. They see these things happening on screen, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's how it is," or "Yeah, maybe if I dial it back a little bit, that's how it is." But it's not, right? You're not seeing reality, right? You're seeing, again, everything is dialed up to 11, and it's a very extreme version of real life. But again, I think that's problematic for people who have never kind of experienced it, right? Do you think there's something to that the narrator was saying, hey, when you use a slang term to have sex, you say, you use the word beat, right? Or we use bang, I think, over here. I think beat is more of a UK slang. But both of those are kind of violent words, are they not? Like certainly over in North America, like if some guy if some guy says, yeah, I'm gonna go home and beat my wife, not that any normal person would say that, but here we would understand them as like, oh my God, he's gonna go home and like assault his wife, like he's going to hit her, I should call the police, right? But like, isn't it interesting that we use a fairly violent term for that? Do you find that the guys don't think there's anything wrong with that? They're like, oh yeah, whatever, it's just what it is, right? But is it?
The sexual relationship, whether or not see this submissive.
Yeah, there's, and that's true, right? Is that there's an active and passive part to this, right? So we said that in terms of gender roles, men are kind of expected to be the pursuer, right? Men are supposed to be the hunter. Men are the ones that are supposed to, ask women out and make the advances. But that also continues, right? Where, men are the ones that are doing something and women are the ones that are receiving something, right? Whether it's the attention or whether it's the compliments or the gifts or the sort of attempted sexual advances, men are the ones with agency, right? Women are the ones, good morning, women's are the ones who are supposed to be passive and submissive, right? Which is also interesting about Shui Shui's mom's sex talk, because what does she say? What does she say in that talk? You have to be careful of HIV, of course, but what does she say? Yeah, she says to her daughter, she says, you're probably going to be pressured, and you have to be strong enough to say no, which is a reasonable thing for her to say. But my question is, how many young men, either in her culture or really in any culture, really, how many young men are getting the sex talk and saying, listen, you have to be strong enough not to pressure a girl into having sex with you, right? You may be really excited and really want to do this thing, but you have to not pressure them and respect what they say, because they may not be ready for this, and neither might you. But do you think a lot of guys are getting that talk? Probably not, right? And so, in teaching this course before, often what I hear is that for female students, they have got this talk before from parents or in school they've got it, but in some cases the guys went out and had recess, so they didn't even get a sex talk. So the girls got the talk and the guys went out and played soccer.
Is it necessary though? I've never been in that thought. I never had a thought of pressure on a woman taking this type of.
Right, and so it's true, right? Is that it depends, right? We're all a little different in terms of our temperament. We're all a little different in terms of the families that we grow up in. We all kind of absorb a set of common social messages, but also some individual ones as well. And we filter them through our kind of own experience and own personality, right? So, for the Harrison Ford movies, for instance, I love those. I still do. I love those movies, right? And, there are some problematic messages in them. And fortunately, I didn't absorb them to the point where I acted that way towards women, right? I never did that. But some men do, right? And it's, and it's a problem. It doesn't work, it doesn't work on everyone. I remember, I don't know why, but this was a while back. One of the ads that was coming up in my YouTube video feed was this guy who was giving you classes on how to meet women. Okay, he was a pickup artist. What he was, and I don't know why this was coming up in my video feed, because I certainly wasn't looking for videos of how to pick up women, but this ad was coming up, and he would go up to women on the street, and he'd be in Europe somewhere, and he'd go up to them and he'd say, "Oh, hi, how you doing? What's your name?" And he'd say, "Oh, hi, I'm so and so," and he'd shake their hand.
Did you watch the entire thing?
No. It was it was like it was the first like 20 seconds of the ad, and then I like skipped it. But he like shakes her hand, okay, but then he won't let go. Like he doesn't let go of her hand, and he keeps talking to her. And I was watching it. I was like, that's exactly what Harrison Ford was doing, right? He's using his physical body to trap women. And here, this pickup artist is getting guys out there to pay him to teach them how to meet women, and he's doing it all wrong. Like he's shaking their hand, which is okay, which is fine. Although, you know, I would recommend, you know, not going for the touch too quickly, but he shakes their hand, but then he won't let go, right? Then they're trapped, right? Then they're stuck with this guy. And that's, you know, that doesn't make women feel safe. That's not a good way to meet women. That's a good way to either turn women off or get maced, right? That's what's going to happen to you. But he's going to give guys classes in how to do this, and it's a bad idea, right? But again, there's lots of guys out there with kind of skewed attitudes about how to interact with women, and they're going to teach you, right? Either whether in movies, whether in pornography, or whether you take a class from this guy who will teach you how to meet women. And yes, you will meet them, and then you'll get pepper sprayed, right? So which is fine, right? Like it's this is the thing, is that, well, this is the other problem, is that men who are not good with women are in some cases ridiculed, right? And they're seen as, you know, wimpy or simpy or, you know, awkward or whatever. And it's okay. It's okay to be nervous, right? It's okay to not know what to say. It's okay to feel like you're going to make a fool of yourself, because you probably will. But that's all okay, and it's okay to look for advice as well, right? It's okay to say, look, I don't know how to interact with women. I don't know how to meet women. I don't know how to sort of start something. I need help. All of that is fine. So I'm not pointing the finger at them. I'm pointing the finger at the guy who is teaching problematic messaging, whether it's through his course or through other forms of media. That's what I'm pointing out. Because I guarantee you, women do not want to be grabbed by you in public. Again, I'm speaking from a male perspective, and so really that should come from a woman, but I'm pretty certain that it's not what women want. Yeah.
Facial thoughts necessarily adapted for teenagers?
Nope. 100% normal.
I thought it was normal.
Nope. When you hit puberty, your body starts manufacturing sex hormones. One of the part of that process are physical changes, but the other ones are kind of emotional and mental changes. Yeah, teenagers think about sex a lot, and they are wired to. That's what your brain does, because your physical body, right, the part of you that is a human animal, is saying, okay, it is time to reproduce now so that we can continue the species, right? That's a natural thing that's happening. Yeah. And it happens to all mammals who reproduce that way, right? Their brain kind of switches on and they become interested in that, because if they don't become interested in it, there's going to be no more animals, right? So yeah, that's an entirely normal thing. Yeah. However, part of that is, again, we said that humans are computers, right? In a way, we're hardware, and then we get our software downloaded into us, right? So yeah, new parts of your hardware will start coming online at different parts of your life, at different times in your life, but it's also important that the software is there to properly use that hardware, right? It's also important that we teach people how to use their sexuality and what their sexuality is, and how to interact with other people in that way, right? But I would argue that, and I can't speak for all cultures in the room, but here in the West, we've actually done a pretty horrible job of doing that. And oftentimes we don't talk about it at all. We just assume, we get all kind of uncomfortable about it, and then we kind of leave kids to figure it out on their own, which is not that helpful, I don't think. Okay, shall we take a little break? Okay, we'll take a little break, we'll come back, and we'll just try and tie up a few loose ends on this documentary here, unless we need to talk more about sex and porn, but we should probably give that a rest. Okay. Okay. And we're back. So, in the second half of the documentary here, we were talking about Lulu and her schoolmates and some of the kind of porny things they were talking about and were interested in. Again, I don't want to get too far into the pornography conversation because people tend to get a little uncomfortable, and I don't think we necessarily need to either. But again, it's probably worth questioning what sort of social messages are transmitted by that media, because we've done the same thing for the other ones, right? We've looked at advertising, we've looked at movies, we've looked at music video, and it's worth asking questions about what are people learning from this media, right? What kinds of, while they're enjoying themselves, what kind of underlying messages are being transmitted, and what messages are they absorbing, right? Particularly if they're young people, right? It's easy to say, that, this type of material is created for adults, and that's true, but it's not only adults who are able to view it, right? Particularly with the internet. And so, we should really be asking ourselves, what are people learning from this? And particularly, this is my opinion, of course, but how can we actually restrict the viewing of this to people who are able to process it? Right? Let's go back to Vigdis. What was Vigdis talking about? Vigdis and her mom, they went for coffee. What did Vigdis and her mom talk about at coffee? Say again? Oh yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that Vigdis and her mom talked about was feminism. And what were they saying about feminism? Right, the comfort, people's comfort about labeling themselves as feminists, and what did Vigdis say? Did she feel like she wanted to label herself as a feminist? Yeah, but also what? Right. So interesting that we have this kind of stereotype about feminists, right? So feminists, like, oh, here we go, right? She's a feminist. Now she's gonna go blah 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 about feminism for 2 hours, and I'm gonna have to listen to it.
Even if you don't say you're a feminist, even if you don't say you're a feminist, like I'd be like, oh yeah, but women do this and men do this. They'd be like, oh, feminist.
Yeah.
People are talking about something. So like.
Yeah. What's the stereotype? What's the underlying stereotype behind feminist?
This stereotype is, it has its places sometimes, on the internet.
Okay, but what is that stereotype? What's the? Yeah. What are they? What are feminists like? Okay, so there might be part of that stereotype. Maybe they're man haters, right? They hate men and they're just beating up on men all the time. What else? Come on, help me out.
They're aggressive.
They're aggressive, right? They're aggressive, man-hating. What else? Probably won't stop talking, right? They'll just keep coming at you with more and more criticism, right? They're extreme. They're, I don't know, what else? No. Probably those kinds of things, right? Now, there's probably some grains of truth to that. There are probably some feminists who do hate men. There are probably some feminists who are very extreme and in your face and kind of a lot to deal with, right? There are probably grains of truth to that, but I ask you, who benefits from believing that stereotype.
I think that stereotype is in essence associated with God. But like if you ask someone who support gender equality, they're gonna say yes, but if you ask them who you feminist, they're gonna say no.
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps yes, right? So maybe there's a branding problem, right, in terms of gender equality versus feminism, but most feminists would probably argue that that's what they're fighting for, right? They are fighting for gender equality. But I think you're right, is that there's been a lot of bad publicity around the label of feminist, right? And again, if you believe that, who wins? Men do, right? Because then, will anyone want to be a feminist if they'll be perceived as this crazy, overbearing, man-hating nut job? No, nobody wants to identify as a feminist if that's the stereotype. And so again, men will win, right? Because then people won't want to be feminists, right? Let's see. So we Vigdis, Lulu, Shui was having the sex talk with her mom, which I think we kind of covered, and Mira. Oh yeah. So the host was kind of talking with Mira's father Marwan, and how his religious views and his social views kind of interact with how he's raising his daughter. And what were they talking about, Marwan and the narrator?
Kind of friendship has to be the family members, but actually how they should be.
Yeah, he didn't really want his daughter hanging out with other kids that came from a liberal family. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Liberal is kind of a
I think somebody differently.
yeah. Well, I think that he did mean that for sure, with different beliefs. I'm not quite sure what those beliefs might have been. I know, right? But again, depending on what part of the world you live in, it may be very reasonable not to let your 15-year-old daughter wander the streets at night, right? It would be nice if she was able to and was safe, but maybe that's not a safe thing to do where they live. I don't know. This is the other thing, right? Is that if you don't know the culture in the area, it's tough to make a judgment. Like, it would be nice if Mira could just go out and do whatever she wants, but I don't know. Maybe that's in Jordan. That's Amman. I don't know how safe a city Amman is. It might be very safe.
I think it's something about the culture, like their culture, not about like the safety.
Right. So there's a personal safety aspect. There's also a cultural thing, right, in terms of gender roles, boys and girls, what they're allowed to do. There's also a kind of a parent-child independence thing, which is another part of culture, which we've talked about, right? How much power and control do your parents have over you at what age? That varies from culture to culture, right? You're going to say something.
No, I'm going to say I'm never so I'm like a man's previous sister, so I can relate to their culture.
Yeah.
So
Did what you were hearing and seeing from Mira and Marwan kind of align with that world? Yeah.
like back home, my dad is taking me home by like the sunset.
Right.
At nighttime, I shouldn't be outside because like that's just how it is in our culture. Apparently, not at 6:30, like bad spirits wander around.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The jinn?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? But is there actually a safety issue? Would you say? No. It's just a cultural thing. Your personal safety is not necessarily in danger.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So there's, and I don't know. Do you feel that the narrator was kind of pushing the religious aspect a little too much with Marwan, or not so much?
I think he wasn't pushing the religious aspect. I time he just sounded like he was concerned about the safety. But everything he was saying, like I know like my dad's told me that, and it's not like facts that like backs it up. It's just beliefs.
Right. And we heard that from Mira's friend, right, when they were getting their nails done. And her friend basically said, yeah, this is just how it is, and you just have to get used to it.
Yeah, that's what my older sister tells me too.
Yeah.
And my older sister didn't travel abroad for university.
Right.
So when I did it, she was like, oh my god, I didn't even know it was an option.
Yeah. Because culture is very good at teaching lessons, teaching values and beliefs and things like that, and then reinforcing them in other ways, right? And so because culture is so good at that, a culture eventually starts to think, well, this is just the way things are. This is the natural order of things. Yeah, we do it this way. How else would we do it, right? But again, when you get a little more, the internet has been great for that, but when you actually get more exposure to other cultures, when you travel to different places, you see, oh, people actually do things a little bit differently, for better or worse. But at least you see there are other options, right? There's other ways of doing things and thinking about things. But again, culture's job is not to do that. Culture's job is to teach and reinforce the values that the culture has, whatever those values might be, right? Which, if I can go back to the two guys in the alleyway and the porn thing, which is why we should pay attention to what we're actually teaching, because the messages are powerful, right? They influence the way that people behave. Your father wants you to come inside at night because of spirits, right? And so, that belief is powerful enough for it to influence his behavior and to influence your life too, right? And so, I'm not going to criticize the belief at all, but it's powerful, right? It has power.
Even right now, when I walk in the sunset, I'm like, oh my god, my dad is like not like
He'd be worried. Yeah. So that's and again, once you internalize some of those things, they become difficult to overcome, right? The first time I went to the UK, the first time I went to England, where they drive on the other side of the road, I crossed the street, but I looked the right way, right? So I looked the right way for Britain, right? But all the way across the street, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna get hit, right? Because you feel you're looking the wrong way, even though I know logically I'm looking the right way for traffic. You feel like, oh God, I'm gonna get pancaked any minute. And so again, you absorb these messages and then you feel them, right? Even when you know they're just ideas, right? Even when you know they're just made up, they have a powerful influence over people's behaviors and feelings and the way things work, right? And again, it's very easy to just say, well, that's just the way things are. And some things are the way things are, and some things are the way that society has agreed that they are, right? And those are different, right? For the most part, yeah. Well, I mean, there are some, actual biological realities to, what humans are as animals. Yeah, the things that are not really about culture, like real biological differences, things that are, true of our species or of kind of the way our universe works. But yeah, most of how a society works is because of how society has agreed that it should. Right? But again, it's very easy to imagine that those things are true, right? Just like, and this is the last thing I'll say, Nasra and Sophie, it's the last thing I'll say, it goes right back to the flat earth idea, right? Where you look out the window and you say, yep, looks flat to me, this is the way the earth is, right? But when you get a little more perspective, you see, oh no, it's not the way the earth is, it's just the way that it appears, right? And culture creates a world that appears a certain way, but a lot of those things are made up or agreed upon, right? They're not natural rules of the universe. But again, that's not to say that we shouldn't believe them, right? Because there's a lot of there's a lot of benefit to having us agree on certain behaviors, and there's a lot of good things that we do which we should do, but doesn't mean that those beliefs shouldn't be re-examined sometimes. Okay. Questions, comments, final things that should be said? Going once, going twice. Okay, that is it then. I will pack it up. I will see you tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about women's suffrage. And then I think we're almost done sexism. I've got a few more things to share with you, a little bit about statistics, and then we'll go on to racism maybe tomorrow or maybe probably Wednesday, go on to racism. Oh yeah, and I'll review those tomorrow too. Yeah, and talk about the paper. And maybe assign another one. And we'll do it all tomorrow, because that's entirely reasonable.
I have a question
Yes.
about my paper.
Okay.
About the comments on my paper.
Okay, give me a minute to just get this organized, and then we can talk about it. Okay, do you want to? Okay.